Will having a flock of hens save you money on eggs? Well, the answer to that is maybe, but probably not. But chickens bring a huge amount of value to your life, so we're going to look at what value chickens bring and also some specific cost-saving measures you can use to keep the costs down in your chicken flock and make those eggs a little bit more affordable. I love having my chicken flock. Now, chickens are not just egg machines. They also bring huge value to your gardening system if you have chickens and gardens together. And even if my chickens didn't lay any eggs, I would still keep them for all of the benefits they provide me in the gardening sphere and because they're really entertaining. That being said, I do enjoy their eggs very much, and the eggs that you get from your own chickens are going to be so much better. Like so much better, I can't even describe to you if you haven't had them how much better they are, even from the absolute best eggs that you can buy. So we're not really talking about the same kind of eggs when we're talking about, will having your own chickens make your eggs cheaper? So it really depends on what's important to you. If you want just the best eggs you'll ever taste in your life, then you've got no choice but to keep your own chickens. But let's look at some specific ways you can control the costs so they don't spiral out of control. The strategies I'm talking about here are for if you're focused on getting eggs from your chicken flock. Now, you don't want to do what I do because I run a very inefficient chicken flock from a cost perspective because it is my hobby and I just love them. But if you want to be careful about how much you're spending versus how many eggs you're getting, there are some ways you can keep that locked down. The first thing I would recommend is get high production egg layers if your goal is eggs. Now, these are the commercially bred chickens that just lay and lay and lay eggs. They will lay all year round except for when they're molting. They'll lay upwards of 300 eggs a year, and you want to only keep those hens for a maximum of 3 years, 2 years if you want to be really, really efficient with it. The alternative option to keeping high production hens is to have bantam hens. Now, bantam hens don't lay a huge number of eggs, but what they do bring is that they're very, very cheap to feed. And because they're not high production, you can get away with their food not being absolutely perfect every day, so they can survive on free ranging and scraps a lot better than the high production hens can, so that is another choice. What you don't want to do is do what I do and just have all the chickens and all the breeds, and none of them are particularly great at laying eggs, and they're quite big and they eat a lot of food. So keep that in mind when you're making your breed selections. Keep your flock number controlled. About 5 hens, particularly if they are the high production layers, will be absolutely all you need for an average size family to keep you in eggs most of the year. You can have more if they're bantams. Maybe you have 10 bantams. They're going to use about the same space as 5 regular sized chickens, and they lay less eggs, so you need more to keep the eggs going. Chicken math is a real thing. So if you want to keep your costs controlled, don't let that start to spiral out of control, but they're really fun. So if it happens, just roll with it. The biggest ongoing cost with a chicken flock is food. And you want to be careful that your chickens are getting the right food for the kind of chicken that they are. So this is where high production hens might not be the right choice for you. It depends on your situation. High production hens need high production food. They're going to lay a lot of eggs, and they're going to lay a lot of eggs over that 2 to 3 year period that they are designed to lay those eggs for. So they need to be fed very well, and you really can't cut many corners with the quality of feed that you give them. You're going to have to buy good quality, high protein feed for those birds. Other breeds, particularly the bantams, but also the heritage dual purpose birds, they're a lot more forgiving when it comes to the food that you can feed them. Now, I'm not recommending just willy-nilly feeding your chickens whatever and not paying attention to their nutritional requirements. But if you've got a flock that doesn't lay a huge number of eggs per hen, they can eat a lot more kitchen scraps, they can eat stale bread, they can forage for their food a lot more efficiently in terms of what they need to produce those eggs, because they're not producing as many per hen. So maybe if you have a source of food for your chickens that is free or very cheap, make good choices around what breeds you get so that you match the food you can provide them with the kind of chicken that they are. Having a worm farm is a great way to provide protein for your chicken flock that doesn't need to cost you any money. Once you've got it set up, worms reproduce very quickly. They double every 2 to 3 months depending on the temperature and what you're feeding them, and that can provide a good free source of protein to your chickens, and protein is very important for egg production, so that is a great way to reduce costs, and it also creates worm compost that you can use on your garden, and then you could use your garden to grow more food for your chickens if you like, so it's just a great little cost savings circle there. One area you don't want to cut costs is on the health of your flock. Keeping your flock healthy is going to save you the most money over the long term than anything else you do. So make sure they have a good space to be in, they have clean water, that you're on top of their parasite management, that you're doing all the things that will keep them healthy, they have good ventilation in their coop. Cutting corners on the health of your flock is not a good idea. You always need to have some kind of calcium supplement available to your hens, whether that's oyster shell or limestone grit, whatever it is in your country that you can give them. Always make sure they have it. Do not cut corners on calcium or on health things for your chickens. To help keep costs low with my flock, I like to collect up organic materials that I can use as their bedding in the coop and also as a cover in the composting chicken run. So I like to go and get lots and lots of fallen leaves in the autumn time to build up their compost run and things like that. You can cut long grass and use it as their bedding material once it's dried. So there are a lot of strategies like that that you can use to save money on having to buy pine shavings or something like that. So that is a good tip. It takes time, but it will save you money. And generally speaking, I don't abide by many of these strategies, except for I like to find ways to feed my chicken flock that doesn't cost me as much, but I do have a pretty hefty feed bill because I make sure the basis of their diet is a good, balanced commercial chicken feed. I have dual purpose chickens, so they don't lay a huge number of eggs per hen, but I have a lot of them, more than we need for our family to keep us in eggs. But even though I pretty much just do whatever with my flock and spend what needs to be spent, even in that situation right now, the cost of eggs at the store has got so high here in New Zealand that even with my crazy inefficient system, I can match the cost of production when I'm accounting for the food and parasite management and healthcare for my chickens. I can match it now at the cost of eggs at the supermarket. That may or may not be true for you. It wasn't the case when I started keeping chickens. My eggs were definitely way more expensive than I could ever buy them at the store from, but now it's pretty much comparable. We just won't talk about how much I spent on chicken coops and things like that. We'll just put that aside. But from a food and healthcare perspective, I can now match the supermarket. Maybe you can too, and chicken keeping is a more affordable proposition for you.